So this video, as a disclaimer, this video is going to have a lot of cussing. Not usually what I like to do in my videos, but you'll see why. Hey, I'm Michelle with Michelle Loves Books. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video was inspired by a post on Reddit, generally regarding this trend of having books with curse words in them, in the title. This specific post showed a table of books. They were all self-help and motivational books. I think those are really the only books that I personally have also been seeing. And then also in the post was something about how the types of people that buy these kinds of books. My initial response to this post was, I don't know how I feel about self-help books. I've never actually read any, but I have noticed this dramatic trend to create an impactful title. It's really great marketing actually. It made me sort of want to pick up Unfuck Yourself, but I'm also feeling slightly assaulted by the presumption that I'm fucked. I think it'd be an interesting case study to see what these books are actually telling people. So that's basically what I'm doing. We're gonna do a case study. No, I have never read a self-help book or a motivational book because I'm perfect. Just kidding. But my expectations are that these books are going to be really cheesy. They're going to be like that movie Yes Man, the guy who does the seminar.
Over here! Come on up, future Yes Man. Terrence will come to the molehill.
But I decided that I needed to see for myself and also not to just be a judgy asshole and see if any of these books have anything to teach me, motivate me, or inspire me. So here's the TBR. I am trying to choose books that are relevant to me, that sound interesting for one reason or another. And of course they have to have a curse word in the title. And like I said, this is specifically for books that have a curse word in the title because I feel like they are meant to be very impactful. I am generally going into this blind. I have not read the synopsis of these books. I'm only going based on what is on the cover. The first book I'm putting on the TBR is Unfuck Yourself, is written by Gary Bishop, because first it's in the picture that was on the table in the Reddit post. And if I were to kind of anticipate what this book may be about, maybe it's about like how to not be an asshole. Because you know, like when someone's pissed off at you and they're like, go fuck yourself. That's kind of like the first thing I think of when I think unfuck yourself. So we're gonna find out. The second book on this TBR is Unfuck Your Adulting. And let me see, I should pull that up so I can tell you who the author is. By Faith G. Harper, PhD, LPC/S, ACS, and ACN. I'm not sure what all of those titles mean except for PhD, of course, duh. But I thought that this book was perfect for me because pretty much I'm just fucked there. So maybe this will actually really help me and give me some motivation to want to adult better. The third book is Summary and Analysis of the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Not done yet. A counterintuitive approach to living a good life.
Ooh, that was a long title. I'm gonna need some water.
This one particularly is really intriguing to me because I want to know, in what capacity are you not supposed to give a fuck? Like, is it everything in life, or like just people and what they think of you? So, you know, I went through that phase a long time ago, and at the time it was what I really needed. It was the turning point of a huge transitional phase in my life, from having lots of anxiety, insecurities, letting people walk all over me, to becoming a more mature person, more brave, more confident. And in between, I went through the whole I don't give a fuck phase. As this title says, the subtle art of not giving a fuck implies to me that maybe this is like a lifestyle choice. Honestly, I don't feel like that's a healthy lifestyle choice. I feel like it kind of makes you an asshole. And then you might have to go get the book, Go Unfuck Yourself. See what I did there? So I really am excited to see what this book is all about. The final book on my TBR is Unfuck Your Brain, Getting Over Anxiety, Depression, Anger, Freakouts, and Triggers. Again, by Faith G. Harper. I'm choosing this book because of the topic on anxiety. The other topics of depression, anger, things like that, I don't really have any relevance to, but it'll still be interesting. So yeah, that's it. 4 books for this challenge. I think it's a really nice balance of different types of topics that are yet still relevant to me. I did find the first book on audiobook, and I'm already about halfway through. And so far, it is not going well. It is just as predicted. It's cheesy, it's preachy, It's vague, and it's filled with affirmations and phrases to repeat to yourself in the mirror every day. I had expected this title to be really edgy and also assertive and impactful, humorous and offensive, since that is what the author has promised me. It started out with like the longest introduction ever. Just when I thought we had started getting into the book, it would start asking questions, telling me what would be in the book until about 20 minutes in, possibly even further, because there wasn't even a huge distinction between the introduction and when we got into the meat of the book, or maybe it's just the meat of the book because I am listening to it on audiobook, so it's kind of hard to see the chapters. Either way, it felt like the longest introduction, kept telling me what to expect out of the book, and asking these hypothetical questions and asking you to raise your hand if this is you, and if you've ever felt like this, raise your hand. And I just, that whole concept of like engaging the audience, I mean, as a public speaker, maybe it's different, but in a book, I feel like it's awkward, and that is not the first time I've heard that. But anyways, personal style aside. Now, the narrator, I'm actually gonna look that up right now because I didn't know if the narrator is the same as the author, Gary John Bishop. Yes, it is. So it's written by Gary Bishop and also narrated by him, because I didn't want to get it wrong, but the accent is a very thick Scottish accent. But at the time, when it first started, I couldn't tell if it was Scottish or Irish accent, but he is in fact Scottish. But anyways, he said in his book that, and this is not verbatim, but it's as close to what he actually said as I can recall. I did write it down somewhere, but I lost my little note card, so this is it. He was not a fan of affirmations. It feels too force-fed, unnatural, like being force-fed honey or something like that, or syrup, maple syrup. He said it's like being force-fed maple syrup. Force-fed, unnatural, and he's too Scottish for that. Also said if you're easily offended, this may not be for you, or something along those lines. So after I read that in the introduction, within the first 20 minutes, this was said about like what to expect from his book. So I got really excited. I was like, wow, okay, this is already going to go against my preconceived notions of self-help or motivational books. But I honestly feel like I was completely lied to. Everything up to this point, and like I said, I'm about halfway through the book, is nothing but cheesy quotes, affirmations. There's absolutely nothing new or original about these. They're also very vague. He preaches about having like powerful words to tell yourself basically that like you are gonna do it right now is more empowering than saying like, oh, I will do it or I want to do it. The whole tone of the book and a lot of the other things he's saying are very passive, and so it's just kind of is not lining up to what he's saying. So some things, I've never read any self-help books, and all of this feels extremely repetitive. So yeah, that's not saying a lot. Some of these phrases I have heard, and he's just used different words to basically say the exact same thing to mix it up or something. There's that. Now, the general premise and what he's trying to get across in his book is to break up the tedium of life and not stay stuck in a rut. Like if there's things that you want to do, then go out and do them now, instead of, oh, I really want to do that, but then like not taking action to actually go and do it. Also like trying to get out of, you know, like, okay, to make this more relatable to book people, when you are in like a book slump, like a reading slump, that's the way I can kind of explain it. It's kind of like when you're in a reading slump and like you just are stuck. And he's talking about that concept, but in life in general. And I think that is wonderful. Like we have all experienced that, but I feel like he's very repetitive in telling us, well, we've all been there, and gives like 10 scenarios for all the different ways we are stuck in life, stuck in marriage or relationship or at work, and how we're feeling, like just scenario after scenario. And it's like, I get it. When you said like stuck in a rut, like I got it then, can we get to the how-to? And there is nothing helpful to help you get out of the rut. It's just being like relatable, like when you're sitting down for coffee with your friends and you're like, man, like my kids are driving me crazy, and they're like, yeah, me too, and I know how you feel. And that's pretty much, that's it. That's all I'm getting from this book. I'm not getting any action, any advice on how to get out of it. And it doesn't even have to be anything original. It could just be like things that is common sense, but just to have someone say it to you helps motivate you. And like, I'm not getting any of that either. But we are gonna keep going. I've committed to this project, so we're going to finish the book. And I think it's about, so I've listened to 1 hour and 32 minutes of it, and there is about 2 hours to go. So it was about 3.5 hour book, so it is pretty short, thankfully, because I don't think I could have taken it this long as I have. And honestly, I did kind of start listening about the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I was listening to it, and it seemed to kind of change its tone. I was kind of passively listening to it, and then the tone kind of changed. So it might be changing. I did have to go rewind it because I didn't remember it, and I didn't, like, if it's changing, like, I want to be present and know what's going on. So, so yeah. So I think that we're going to get into some more assertive, discussion here. Hopefully, crossing my fingers, please do not waste 3 hours of my time. I beg you, please do not waste 3 hours of my life. So that's what we're doing. The other books are ebooks. The other books I have already checked out from Hoopla, which is great because you don't just get like 14 days, you get like almost a whole month of your rental. So it gives me some time. I don't feel stressed to have to get them read in 2 weeks. So I did find them on ebook through Hoopla. So that's awesome. I already have them ready. Now we just have to get through them. So I will catch up with you later as I finish this book and what book we're going to move on to next. So today I'm going to just be cleaning and listening to Unfuck Yourself, the last of it. So there's about 2 hours left. I listened to it. Right now I have it set at 1.75 the speed, basically 2 times the speed. So I'm only thinking it's going to take me about an hour to finish it. And then I'm going to try super hard to find the other books on audiobook. They don't believe they had them on Hoopla, otherwise I would have checked them out. But maybe my library, maybe Overdrive will have them on audiobook. That would be so fantastic. Okay, so I have finished Unfuck Yourself, and I kind of feel like an asshole for the initial things that I had said about the book, of the like first hour and a half of the book. I ended up really liking the book. There was still kind of the same style of lots of scenarios for each of the types of feelings that people have. They like feel stuck and everything. The tone was a lot more assertive. As the book progressed, we got a lot more of the sass and the edginess that I was wanting. And then it wasn't until like the very end of the book, like the very last chapter, where he was like, get off your ass. And that's like the offensiveness that he had initially said in the introduction, that he said if you're gonna be easily offended, then this book may not be for you. But it really isn't until like the very end where he's like, there is absolutely no excuses, get off your ass, go unfuck yourself. And like, I'm kind of disappointed that that was all I got, because that's what I wanted like for the entire thing. He did a discussion on certainty and comfort zones that are keeping you from your actions, like keeping you from taking the action to change an aspect in your life. And I thought that there was a lot of value in that. I probably like go on a roller coaster where like sometimes I just want to do what I'm comfortable doing, but sometimes I have no problem jumping out of my comfort zone to do something that I want to do. So it kind of 50-50. Gwen's chasing a fly. Like, I know a lot of people who probably struggle with that, and I think that's pretty motivational. There were a couple of scenarios that were really dramatic. For instance, like when he's talking about regrets you're gonna have when you're on your deathbed, like very descriptive of that scenario. But I really like the comparisons he made during that discussion, because one of the comparisons, I feel like there's a much better, smarter word to use for that, but I don't know, it's not. Anyways, we're gonna go with comparisons, because one of the comparisons he makes is, you're not going to regret looking like a bodybuilder, you are going to regret stopping at a drive-thru every night. And he has about 4 or 5 of them that I thought were really good. It really like puts things into perspective, like what feels good now, and like you might go several years doing these same habits thinking eventually you're gonna change, but like if you never do, you're gonna regret it. And even in like, say, 5 years down the line, if you spent 2 of those years wishing your way out or waiting for the mood to strike to get out of a bad habit, you're gonna regret that you spent like so much time, because I swear, the older you get, the faster time speeds up. At the very end, he's talking about like his wrap up of like, there are no excuses anymore. The one thing, if I had to quote one thing from this book, he says, you're not a fucking special case. And it's not like original. It's not. I've said this a million times when my husband and I are like talking about millennial mentality. There's so many instances, especially in like a workplace, where people feel like they are entitled. I've said this a million times, but the fact that he said it the way he said it, with his lovely Scottish accent, you're not a fucking special case. I'm just like, yes, thank you. I love it. Although I ended up having a good experience with this book, it still doesn't take away from the really slow start that I experienced with this book, but it did make it a lot better. And I wanted to go ahead and tell you about Gary John Bishop, the author and narrator of this audiobook. So he writes another book called Do the Work and Stop Doing That Shit, End Self-Sabotage and Demand Your Life Back. I actually might pick up those books. I really love the covers. Oh, there's a YouTube video, YouTube Self-Made Man, and I'm gonna leave it in the description below. At this time, I have not watched it myself. It looks like there's a bunch of different episodes too. I'm gonna look up his profile on Goodreads. Began his journey in Glasgow, Scotland. He has a tough love persona, in-your-face approach to coaching. He did mention this in his book. He did mention his experience coaching people. I'm not 100% sure what you need to do to be a coach, but that's what he does, is, I guess, life coaching? Yeah, so that's all it says. It just says coaching. I'm pretty much done with my chores. I actually got it done pretty quickly. The only thing I'm just waiting on some laundry. I should vacuum, but I might hold off on that because I want to be lazy. I need to go fill the pool. So I want to find one of these other books on audiobook. I want to do the adulting one. I'm really looking forward to that one. Unfuck Your Adulting. They do have it in audiobook. They have both of them in audiobook. How did I miss that the first time? So we're going to check those out and we're going to start reading those. I've exceeded my monthly limit. And why did they just say my monthly limit of 7? You should have a limit of 10. Am I penalized for something? What did I do? When does the month start over? That's what I want to know. Well, that's stupid. That is really stupid. I guess I'll have to wait until my monthly limit refreshes. Hope that AC is not too bad. It's like right behind the tablet. Okay, well, this is becoming a regular thing. Yeah, I am sitting in line again to pick up my kids from school. This is their early release day, so they get out at 12:30. I'm not ready for them to come home yet. I kind of don't like early release days. I don't remember ever having early release days when I was a kid. It is a thing, and it messes up like your whole day. I am here to talk about Unfuck Your Adulting by Faith G. Harper. This is the second book I read. I rented this from Hoopla from the library. I really like it. I'm actually just recently starting to try to force myself to get into ebooks. So I was really kind of nervous about this, but I had committed to the project. I was a little bit nervous because I thought the book was going to be really long, really dense. If it was anything like Unfuck Yourself, I was going to struggle. But this ended up being really short, really quick, straight to the point. I really love her writing style. It's very sassy. It's just a lot of fun. No bullshit approach. Does not have any fluffy, lyrical storytelling moments. So many funny moments throughout this book. And I will share some of them with you. It's kind of difficult to pick which few lines to share with. She really does an excellent job of getting straight to the core of a conflict versus the symptoms. And she breaks it down really simple. Absolutely anybody can understand. It feels like kicking it in a backyard over a couple of beers with a good friend. She makes really relatable comparisons that are absolutely hilarious, and she also laughs at herself. So as I kind of stated before, I had expected a more like learn how to be a grown-up, task-based, time management topics. So if that's what you're looking for, this is not the book. This is very much centered around emotional maturity. There's excellent advice in this book, and I would recommend it to everybody. I found myself actually making a lot of connections to my life, either from my past, maybe past behaviors that I had done, things that I've seen in other people and the way that they act. But mostly, I kind of left feeling really good about myself. At first, I thought I really suck at being an adult, and I really need some help with that. But when it comes to emotional maturity, I left feeling pretty good. I'm a pretty emotionally mature person. High five to me. But here is one quote from her book that I really liked. It's something that both my husband and I pretty much live by. It says, "The most badass people I know are the people who are always growing, shifting, seeking, and sitting with this discomfort of continued self-awareness of where they are and how that falls short of where they want to be." Now, here I have an entire page. I won't bore you with the entire page. I was going through all of my bookmarks. I tried to just pick out the best ones, and the ones that just highlighted her personality and like what you could get from the book, ones that I personally just really loved, some of the advice topics. There's so many, and I feel like you just need to read this book. So here are a few. Carry your own baggage. We all have baggage. People with relatively trauma-free lives are fucking unicorns. The next one is, people in your life can't unfuck your body image for you. If you don't figure out how to carry your own load, you'll never have to figure out how to actually deal with it. She includes a quote that her mother used to tell her. Was it her mother? Somebody in her life used to tell her this. It's probably going to go in my personal quote book too, because it's a good one. People can fuck you over, but they can't fuck you up. No one makes you feel how you feel. Sometimes you just can't unfuck your thinking. My alarm is telling me that the kids are getting out of school. And the line is moving. And this is regarding other people's opinions and sense of security. That's about them and not about you. Their insecurity is about their worldview. Failures are events, not people. Failing doesn't make you a failure. Love people, not their bullshit. Don't let them walk all over you. I really like this one too, especially in the world of social media and putting our lives on the internet. And I say our because I'm very much with everybody else. Don't emotionally vomit all over everything all the damn time. Don't compare your insides to other people's outsides, assuming people have perfect life because of what you see. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc., portrays people's best lives. Okay, so that sums up Unfuck Your Adulting, and the line is moving along, so I better get going. The next book I'm going to read is Unfuck Your Brain. It is also written by Faith G. Harper, and I'm expecting very much the same format. This one's a little bit more on the serious side. It talks about anger, depression, anxiety. I'm really excited to see how she talks about those in her book. Okay, I'm in my favorite place to read, my comfy bed. I feel like I'm having a really hard time focusing on reading as of late. I was very productive in last night and today. I uploaded 2 videos that have been on my to-do list that were really causing me to not be able to focus on reading, so I feel like tonight I can really focus on getting some reading. So I have like a general question for anyone who's like a really big reader, especially if you are a booktuber. Do you ever get like too overwhelmed that you have too much that you want to read? I want to read all these books all at once and I can't. So does that ever get to you? Anyways, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. So anyways, I am going back to reading Unfuck Your Brain. It's not that it's bad at all. It's more scientific, denser, and a little bit more serious, and it's a little bit longer as well. But it still is maintaining her sense of humor and her candid, no bullshit behavior, which I still do appreciate. I'm chilling right now. I'm gonna try to really focus on it for like 30 minutes, and then I'm gonna go make some dinner, because honestly, like, it's only like 4:30, but I'm really hungry now. I don't want to like make dinner right now. Me, it's whatever, but like the kids, they need to eat between like 6 to 7. Otherwise, it'll be like 8 o'clock, it's time for bed, and they're like, oh, I'm starving. I have to like wait until a little bit later for them. Okay, I had to stop here. We are talking about trauma and how this chapter is how trauma rewrites the brain. So there's some really, really, really good things in here, and whether or not this book is for you or not, I feel like there's some really good messages in here for understanding other people, especially when it comes to trauma. And the reason I wanted to specifically say this, and this happens all the time, and people, like, someone has like PTSD. Connecticut. Hello? There's nobody. I don't know anybody in Connecticut. I've been getting a lot of weird calls lately. I think I'm pretty good at not judging anybody myself, but I've seen other people do it where they're like, oh, you're freaking out over that little thing, like you don't even know what pain is. I know pain. Kind of thing. I worked with somebody, and it didn't matter what you talked about. They always had to one-up you. And it would be for things like, oh, I had it worse than you. I hate that mentality. So she basically says that there are lots of different things that can be deeply traumatic to people, but everyone is kind of like on a spectrum. The way it affects me is going to be completely different from how it affects somebody else because of an endless list of things. I wish everyone would realize that. To be honest, there are plenty of things that are deeply traumatic for many people that aren't really considered by our diagnostic manuals. It's one of those things that burns my ass, and she's talking about the clinical side of things, and I really like that she's shedding light on this. It's so important. It's one of those things that really burns my ass because it then leads to people feeling ashamed that their trauma wasn't traumatic enough to warrant attention. And that's some bullshit right there. Because fancy terms and definitions aside, a trauma is a what the fuck was that? Says, creating a list that touches only on the big diagnosable categories dismiss other experiences that shouldn't be dismissed. And then there's some statistics that I'll never remember. Having suffered abuse as a child is a trauma we all recognize, for example. But having dealt with a horrific bullying isn't necessarily a recognized trauma, even though many people have taken their own lives because they were bullied. Please believe me when I say our experiences and reactions are valid and real, and you are worthy of care and opportunity to heal. Because we don't know why some things are worse than others for some people. I know that it's a weird fucking idea, but everyone is different. And I love that. Like, that's just dripping with sarcasm. And then the last thing that I thought was just really interesting that I did not know was we now even know that trauma can actually create genetic changes that can be passed down through generations. If you have a great-grandparent, or parent with a serious trauma history, you are wired for a different response than someone who had family members without a lot of life trauma. So not only do our genes influence our trauma reactions influence our genes. So as you can kind of tell, like, there's still like really good information in here. It's just, it is slowing down a little bit. What time is it? It's 5:07. I'm gonna give myself 15 more minutes and then I'm gonna go make dinner. I didn't want to have to do this, but I have to. I can't do it. So, I am going to be DNFing Unfuck Your Brain. And it's not because it's a bad book at all. In fact, it is really, really good. It has a lot more therapy in it, and it has a lot more education on trauma. And that's pretty much where I stopped. We got into some talk about PTSD. Well, first is trauma, describing your brain on trauma, talking about PTSD. And honestly, I had no idea what PTSD is, how they diagnose it based on triggering things. Reading through it was triggering to me. You learn something new about yourself every day. This is why I really don't see the need in going out of my way to put myself in a mind fuck. I know exactly what it's going to do to me. It's going to put me down and out emotionally for like a month or two until I can unfuck my brain. So you kind of know what's in this book. You know if it's going to be a little triggering to you. Yes, it's definitely heavier than the books I've read so far. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the final book. I'm really disappointed that I can't finish it. But I think that it would be the healthiest thing for me to do. Now, if I had a therapist lined up to talk to after I forced myself into this headspace, that would be a different story. I'd probably do it, but I don't have a therapist, so we just ain't gonna go there. So the next book I'm gonna go ahead and move on to is Summary and Analysis of the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a Counterintuitive Approach to. So I did not realize this. I kind of already started the book. And there's another book called The Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And this is like a response novel. That's really weird to me. And so basically he's taking that book and like, it's like a commentary novel, like what I think of it. I'm not 100%. I might kind of try to read both of them simultaneously, especially since I'm not finishing Unfuck Your Brain. Maybe I will do that instead. I'm gonna go get some dinner first and then I'll move on. I think I am going to pick up my fantasy, my Court of Mist and Fury, and take a break from self-help books just to kind of give my brain a rest. Okay, so I just finished reading Summary and Analysis of the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. So I was going back and forth. I felt like maybe I should read the source material book instead of the summary book, but he really it's a lengthy book. I've already used up all of my books for the month on Hoopla, so I just decided that this will be sufficient. He does a really good job of just summarizing it and not reflecting his own opinions too much, and also I'm honestly getting really burnt out on the topic. But basically, I think this book, or the source material, is a good book, and I think it has a really good message. I particularly like the discussions on the millennial mentality of entitlement and thinking that you're special, avoidance, and getting defensive when you're criticized. I also really like the topic on determining what it is to live a happy life and what is happiness. From the images that you see on, for example, like social media, people are portraying their best lives, obviously. And the ideals that those things matter and those things make someone happy. The fact that we are surrounded by all of these things and trying to separate those feelings and determine what it is exactly that you as an individual value, and not letting other people's values influence what you value. So the title of the book of How to Not Give a Fuck, he does not mean don't ever give a fuck about anything. What it is to not give as many fucks about everything, which goes back into this idea of figuring out what is valuable to you and putting your time and energy into those things, and then everything else don't give a fuck about, because it's just nothing more than toxic to your life. So I think it's a really good message. It has a lot of good points, and I think that even if you're not one of those people that feels like you are living in this toxic bubble, if you feel like you've got your shit together, it's still not a bad idea to read this book. I think you can still get something out of it. I think that everyone kind of fluctuates. Actually, on the topic of happiness, he says that happiness is fleeting. While you are happy for the time being, or there was this goal in mind that you wanted to achieve and you achieved it, and so this is happiness, but that's only temporary until you have another goal. This was actually discussed in, I think, 2 of the other books as well. Should never just be completely satisfied with what you have. You can always look for growth. The author is also opposed to those cheesy affirmations that tell you, just keep telling yourself to stay positive. And words like that, just because you say, just stay positive, life is good, doesn't make it so. He says that words are cheap and basically you just can't wait for the benefits of your affirmations to happen. You have to work your ass off. This message also seems to be universal throughout these books. I think this was Also, another test to see if all of these books are really repetitive. There are a couple things throughout these books that I am finding a little bit repetitive, but not in a bad way. So that wraps up this case study and this discussion. As always, please feel free to open up a discussion with me in the comments below. Let me know if you read any self-help books and which ones that you like to read. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.